Hey soccer fans, welcome back to the Feed the Fire podcast. I'm your host Nick, and in this episode we're going to recap the Chicago Fire's 3-1 loss at St. Louis, and we're going to do it, yes, with our usual stats breakdown, but also I'm going to be playing Frank Klopas' post-game press conference, and you can listen along to my reactions. I haven't listened to any of this before. I wanted to save it and get it all raw, unfiltered, uncut on this take for the show, so that's how we'll be recapping that one. We're also going to take a peek ahead at the next two games that the Chicago Fire have. Midweek game against Charlotte, and then a regular Saturday matchup against Columbus. Also, little coaching news here in the world of CONCACAF. Just announced earlier today, Monday, May 13th, Jesse Marsch has been hired as, no, not the Chicago Fire head coach, as the Canadian men's national team coach heading into this summer's Copa America. So we'll recap the articles covering all of that, as well as give you a lot more on tonight's episode, so stay tuned. Hey soccer fans, welcome back once again to the Feed the Fire podcast. This is your host Nick. Thank you for joining me each and every week as we have kind of our own cathartic moments here, going over everything with the Chicago Fire and around Major League Soccer. Real quick, I want to thank the account STL Soccer News for promoting Feed the Fire's last episode. They not only cover St. Louis City and all of St. Louis soccer, but they also aggregate and promote all the different opposing team sites. So they've got a great collection of podcasts, shows, YouTube channels from all around MLS. Make sure you go check them out. And again, thank you to everyone at STL Soccer News for promoting Feed the Fire as a show that is covering St. Louis opposition. Also, I want to thank anyone who's responded to our Spotify polls. If you go online and listen to the episode on Spotify, you can answer one of the questions. It's always, what do you think of the episode? And another Chicago Fire related question that I put out there. I want to thank the user Enver Nerseki, excuse me if I mispronounced that, for his comment, which is as follows. I don't like the disrespect to Shaqiri. He was just trying to get the fans back into the game, and that free kick was pretty good. Go Fire. So to set that up, in the last match, prior to the St. Louis match, Shaqiri took a free kick, put it over the wall, hit it with some pretty good pace. Was a good save by the keeper, but it was, about center of the goal. Maybe not the best placement, but solid free kick, right? I'll give you that. But after that, as he goes to take the corner kick, he starts pumping up the crowd, and he took a lot of heat from people on social media, as well as for me on the podcast last episode, for saying like that's what you're getting the crowd excited about, a free kick that you missed. You've been playing, like, I think at that point, like 70 to 80 minutes, and this is what you're going to decide to try and get the crowd pumped up for. Okay. My further comments were, you need to get the crowd pumped up with your play, not just raising a fist to the north end zone fans there and trying to pump them up, right? So, anyway, I appreciate the comment, Enver. I appreciate you ending it with Go Fire. That's something we can all agree on. I think we can also all agree we need to see a lot more from Shaqiri than just pretty good free kicks and crowd work. I think we'll agree on all of that. But please, let me know what you think, and if anyone else out there wants to give me some more feedback, lines are always open here, at least the internet lines. You can email me, glasshousesoccer@gmail.com, or you can find me on social media at glasshousesoccer. Also wanted to give everyone a quick little update on my son's under-8 team that I coach, and I said I needed a cathartic moment, and I'm going to share a little bit with you guys here. I put a couple things out on social media, so you might know where I'm going with this. Oh my goodness, my opposing coach this weekend. This is the same guy last season who asked the referee to hand out yellow cards to all the 7-year-olds on my team because they were fouling his players. He's back at it again, folks. This guy, let me tell you, within the first minute of the game is already screaming at the referee, calling for handballs against my team. He's on the far side of the field. The referee is in the play, and he's calling for handballs in the box. He wants penalty kicks. He wants fouls. He wants... Again, we're like 1-2 minutes into the game. I had enough of it from last session and already, and I just looked at him and I yelled, "We got it." And he goes, "Oh, do you got it, Richard?" I was like, "Yeah, we got it." He's like, "You sure, Richard?" I just look at him like, I'm like, that's not my name. I know what he's doing. I know he's calling me a Richard. I know, because, his mentality still has not graduated past middle school and those kind of comments, right? I thought that was going to be the worst of it, is just dealing with him. And so I made sure to give it back to him so that he focused on me instead of yelling at my players like he has done in the past. So instead, his overweight buddy on the sideline, who's sitting in his lounge chair, his reclining lounge chair, whatever, fold-out chair, I don't know, decides to start yelling at his kids when their keeper goes to pick up the ball. Make sure you slide into him. So okay, you got hothead screaming at 8-year-olds. You got Tubbo on the sideline saying to injure players. I thought that was the worst of it. So I said, you know what? Enough of this. I got to change how I approach this game. So I started complimenting his players when they made a good play. Not just my own guys. I started complimenting their players. And I guess that concept shocked him enough where he actually stopped yelling for a few minutes. And I took that opportunity then to say, hey, coach, look, for my part, I'm sorry with all this back and forth, all right? But we're playing with 8-year-olds here. We're playing with kids. I respect that you're out here trying to help the kids. But really, man, why are you screaming at them so much? Well, I just get so excited. I'm like, well, keep it under control. They're 8. And why are you calling me a dick? He's like, oh, I thought your name was Richard. I'm like, come on, dude. Like, even when I was litigating against some of the sleaziest plaintiff lawyers, like, they wouldn't even look me in the eye and say such a bold-faced lie to me. And he's like, I really thought your name was Richard. I'm like, no, it wasn't, but okay, we at least made peace. So there wasn't a repeat of last season where, as I'm huddling my team up after the game, he's walking off the field yelling at us. So I at least made peace then. Sure enough, his wife, who's his assistant coach, then takes that moment to take exception to a foul against their team and screams, what the F? So the entire field hears it. Parents on the opposite side of the field, all the kids, my bench, everyone here. And I just look at her and I'm like, cut that out. She was so wrapped up in her own little world, she didn't realize she had actually walked into my bench area and was standing in front of me swearing, that I startled her when I said, hey, watch your language. Cut that out. Her response, I'm just trying to protect my players. And I look at her and I'm like, from what? They're 8 years old. And at that point, the referee comes over and says, you guys got to cut this out. And of course, like a true sociopath, she looks at the referee and says, I apologize, sir. I know my language was impolite on that one. I apologize. And I'll apologize to the coach. I'm sorry. And the ref's looking at me and he's like, what do you have to say? And I was like, I don't appreciate her walking into my bench and swearing at my players. I apologized for that. What a sociopath. Only sorry because you got caught. I do have to say, though, I'm not going to try and let that be the lingering memory of this game. I am so proud of my kids. Their goals in that game, they scored 5 goals, and they ended up passing probably 4 or 5 times, building the ball up, moving it downfield, and then crossing and getting a shot off. I was so proud of how they played, with one exception. At the end of the game, and this is the funny part, it's tie game. The opposing team gets a corner kick. The kid kind of muffs it goes short, and my defender just runs and boots it as far as he can for another corner kick. There's like 4 minutes left in the game right now. The other coach is losing his mind. He's yelling at the kids, do you even know it's a tie? What are you doing? What's wrong with you? Why would you do that? Why are you wasting time? My kids think it's the funniest thing in the world now that he's all razzed up about it, fired up about it, and then they're just wasting time because this other kid can't get a corner kick past our defenders. 3 times in a row, they booed it so far out of play. And I just had to look at the referee, the opposing coach, the fans, and I go, I'm not coaching them to do this. They're watching way too much Premier League. The whole group of people just started laughing. The referee blew the game dead, and that's how we left it. It was a riot. It was a riot. And I do got to recognize my son. He had a great run up the left side with maybe about 6 minutes left in the game. Steals the ball from their attacking player. Blows by him. Another defender comes up, and I'm like, all right, nobody's making a support run. Like, you're going to have to take this guy on. I didn't realize he had the little roulette spin move, where you kind of step past the ball with one foot and then do a spin and drag the ball back with your other foot. I didn't know he had that in his arsenal, or at least as smooth as he pulled it off. I couldn't believe it. But as you see in watching games, it's always that third defender. Even the pros have the hardest time getting past the third defender. So as my son made the run into the opposing third, his attacking third, that last defender just came blown across to boot the ball out for a throw-in. But yeah, a lot of memories, a lot of good ones. Thank you for letting me share this with you. I think that we're all a little bit closer with each other now after listening to my adventures in coaching under 8 Park District Rec Soccer here. Now let's get back to why we're all here. The Chicago Fire and their match against St. Louis City. We're going to do a little of the lineups, the stats breakdown, and then we'll get into Klopas' post-game conference. So let's go over the starting lineup. You had Brady in goal from left to right across the back, Gutman, Pineda, Turan, and Aragoni. Central defensive mids, Kellen Acosta, Fabian Herbers. Your attacking mids, Chris Mueller, Xherdan Shaqiri. Xherdan Shaqiri. I'm still trying to get my voice back from all the yelling I did this weekend. Brian Gutierrez on the right, and Hugo Cuypers up front. And the goals in this match were scored 2nd minute, Alm. 56th minute, João Klaus. 67th minute, João Klaus again. Now, the Alm goal was just kind of lazy. Brady was still a little too far forward because it was so early on in the game. Nobody really steps. Alm takes a quick check to see where Brady's at, lets it fly. It was a hell of a shot. I'll give him that. But again, these are the kind of goals that the Chicago Fire should not be giving up and cannot be giving up if they hope to ever pick up points. Forget wins. Forget streaks. Just picking up a point, a draw on the road. Also on these João Klaus goals, it's again terrible defending, a lot of miscommunication, a lot of backpedaling, a lot of not knowing where to go. You saw on João Klaus's header, you see Aragoni pointing to him like, watch this guy, but I don't know who he's talking to. Because as the St. Louis attackers are coming down, it's almost like they're in the windows between the Chicago Fire defenders, and that left Mauricio Pineda having to pick, do I go forward and pick the guy up in front of me? Do I drop back and follow João Klaus? But you got to pick the guy in front of you on that one so he can take away the flick or the near post header or whatever it is. So he presses forward. Aragoni presses forward as well, and João Klaus slips right behind him. Suke is dropping away from the play. I would have liked to see him recognize Klaus's run and the fact that he is St. Louis's #1 option and one of the better strikers in MLS, and step up on him, but instead Suke drops further back to take the far post man, and that leaves Klaus open. So there was just a lot of miscommunication and just a lot of terrible defending that we've come to see be the norm here for the Chicago Fire this season. Now, Hugo Cuypers does get a goal in the 46th minute, and you think, okay, St. Louis scores early, the Fire at least keeps them scoreless, 1-0 at halftime, scoreless after that, 1-0 at halftime, they get the quick strike, they're level, just reset the game, right? And then, unfortunately, 10 minutes later, they give up the lead. But what was great about this is it's got all the things that you want to see from the Chicago Fire with their current roster build. Chris Mueller brings the ball up the right. I don't know what he was doing on the right-hand side this time. Crosses it over almost too far, but right to Andrew Gutman, who's able to knock it back in the center for Cuypers to kind of one-time falling away, half-volley kind of a strike. Things that he's used to doing when he was in the Belgian league and scoring 30, 40 goals over the last couple of seasons. So that is what you wanted, and it was great, and that should have lifted the Fire back up, but they just fell back into old habits, and as soon as Klaus got that second goal for St. Louis, his first on the night, everything kind of fell apart. So that's kind of my long take on the game, and we'll hear a lot more of this from John Donovan. But looking at the statistics, possession was about even. MLSsoccer.com gives the slight edge to St. Louis with 50.2%. The Fire end up with 13 shots, 4 on goal, and 4 blocked shots. They had 408 total passes at an 83% completion rate, but again, not getting the ball into the attacking area. Only 3 corner kicks, 7 total crosses, no offside. That kind of shocked me. I like having 2 or 3 offsides at least a game because it shows you're stretching the back line. Regardless, they won 13 aerial duels. They had a 2.5 XG, 2.5 expected goal. That seems to be on the higher end for the Chicago Fire as of late, excluding the 2 games they actually won. That seems a bit on the high end. So they did have some okay opportunities this match. Considering they only had 4 shots on goal and they were expected to convert 2.5 of those, that would have been a very welcome change to the Chicago Fire's offense lately. But here we are. Brady ended up with 4 saves, and it's hard to blame Brady for any of those 3 goals. The first one, he was far off his line, but again, no defensive pressure. And if you're a goalkeeper trying to save shots that are coming from inside 10 yards, that's more on the defense than you. But still, 4 saves, 3 goals allowed. The Fire defense had 20 clearances. They were scrambling back there a lot. 11 fouls and 3 yellow cards. The 5-minute possession intervals, if you really are into that sort of thing, it really was back and forth. The game was real back and forth, and you get that from 2 teams who like to counterattack, especially a St. Louis team who likes to press, turn you over, and counterattack. St. Louis only ended up with 2.1 expected goals, so they were making the most of their difficult opportunities. But then again, they had 24 shots, 7 of which went on target. So that is the statistical breakdown from the St. Louis victory over the Chicago Fire. Now, we're going to also dive into Frank Klopas' post-game press conference here. I'm going to play it through the Chicago Fire website. There may be a quick break right now in the recording as I transition to record straight from their website, and I'll give you all my live commentary on that. Okay, so here we go. Frank Klopas' post-game reaction after the 3-1 loss at St. Louis. Let's give a listen. I'm going to be pausing it and giving you my initial reaction. I haven't listened to this at all yet, so we'll take it from there. Let's go.
Just the slow start, St. Louis coming out and getting a goal so fast. What do you think kind of contributed to that? And rivalry game coming out like that.
Yeah, no, Joe. I think it's a slow start. You talked about it. We prepared all week. We told them what to expect. I mean, regardless of the shot. I mean, the guy can hit a great shot, but I'm just saying that the first half, I think our ability to compete and win duels, that wasn't good enough. We did create 2 big.
Okay, so I'm going to pause it there. We're about 30 seconds into the clip. That first question from Joe Chatz over at OnTap Sportsnet. Great writer, great lover of soccer, I guess you could say. An all-around good guy. I've gotten to meet him on a couple occasions. So really does a good job with his writing, his blogging, his covering the team, covers Red Stars, covers the Fire. So if you're not already following Joe Chatz, go do that. He puts out a lot of, as he calls them, little chats, because his last name is spelled Chatz, when he does interviews with players. So make sure you go find him. But here, what Frank is saying is like not good enough from the players. I'm glad he's finally calling them out. Like, I think this might be the harshest he has been, the most critical he's been of this team that I can remember, calling them out, that it's not good enough. And he's kind of downplaying, though, Alm's shot, that opening shot. I mean, yeah, it was a good shot. He took his chance. He saw Brady off his line and blasted it like a good striker would. But I'm glad Frank is calling his players out here. Let's see what else he says.
Chances that I feel we need to score. We need to score on those chances.
Yep, again, typical Fire, right? Early opportunities go begging.
But our ability to compete, we can talk tactics all we want, but for me, everything starts from that. And we came in, we addressed some things with the guys, we talked about it, and then, look, we go to the second half, we had a good start, really good start, and then again, it's just the little things, our positioning, arguing with the referee, they play quick, so, we got to cut that stuff. But the most important thing for me, it's like, coming out there and we need to compete and we need to fight, and forget about sometimes tactics and this or that, and that's stuff it's in players' control. We need to bring that energy for 90 minutes in order to turn these things around.
So I'm going to take a little bit of issue with what you're saying here, Frank. Yeah, the players need to be able to get up and come out, but it's the coach's job to get them up. Yes, they are professionals. This is their job. Like, I don't go into my insurance claims handling company and have my boss come in and be like, "All right, Nick, you ready to work some claims? You ready to settle some lawsuits today?" I think that would be phenomenal. But like, I'm a professional. I know what I have to do. I come in every day and I get it done. Little different with athletes. Little different with pro sports. Coaches need to see when something's not working, when their team is dragging, and they need to coach them up. Literally, coach them up. for it. So, yeah, the players need to bring a certain level of accountability to this, but it also falls at least equally on the coaching staff here. What really irked me, though, what really made me upset when he said it was downplaying the tactics. He's like, it's not tactics as much. They need to come out and just play better and fight harder. I'm like, to be nice, it's like a chicken and egg argument. If the tactics are terrible, how are you supposed to fight and play hard? Even if you do fight and play hard, you're going to get let down by your tactics. So it's clear then that the players don't have any faith in the coaching staff. This wasn't Joe Chats asking, what tactical changes should you have made or what would you have done differently? No, Joe just asked, like, hey, what do you take away from the rivalry game? And Frank comes out and is like, it's not about tactics. Whoa, Frank, who said anything about tactics? Me think you doth protest too much here. So he's given himself away a little bit, but also just the foolishness to think that it's not about tactics. Frank, come on, man. We saw the defense have nothing to do. And I had a conversation with John Donovan about this off the air earlier, and he was saying, like, Tehran just boots the ball because he's got nobody to play the ball to. Well, first of all, that's because you've got Fabian Herbers playing out of position as a defensive midfielder. He's not a guy you pivot from. He's not a guy who's dropping deep, receiving a pass from a defender, and then turning and starting the attack forward. No, he's not that guy. Kellen Acosta can't be that guy when he's marking all the other players that St. Louis has, or is at least trying to generate space for Herbers to come into. Shaqiri's not that guy because he don't run. It needs to be Gutierrez, and we've heard so many different people say that, from Kendra St. Aubin to Kaylin Kyle on MLS, and I usually don't agree with a lot of what she says, but I'll agree with that. Like, everyone's been saying that Guti needs to be that central midfielder to really ignite the offense and come back and maybe be part of a pivot or something like that, the transition from defense to offense. But, Frank, that's why the players aren't fighting and battling, because they don't know what they're doing out there, man. You can't just throw a bunch of guys out there, regardless if they're pros, and just let them figure it out for themselves. Obviously, this late in the season, it ain't working, my friend. It ain't working. All right, I think that was probably the most I'm going to yell. There's still 6 minutes left in this clip. Let's get back to it.
There's no secret. That's the only thing that I can tell you.
All right, who's next?
This is difficult for me to ask, but it was around this time last year that big changes were made by the Fire. Do you feel there's anything big that needs to change for this team right now?
Oh, thank you, Alex Calabrese, who comes in and asks, he puts it in his very nice words, but essentially he's like, they fired Ezra last year with similar results. What do you think needs to happen?
That's not a question for me, I think for me, I believe in the players 100%.
Good coach answer,
just
Frank.
have to make sure that we go to every game and we get the best out of the players. They need to come in and with that kind of mentality and attitude. If we go into games and, you're looking at guys and you say, we really stood out tonight, and, you can count some guys on your finger, it's going to be difficult. So is the quality there? Are the players there? Yes. Again, we created over 2.5, 2 point something and expected goals. Hugo scored, which is great, in the box.
Giving himself away again, active. Frank. You're giving yourself away.
That was really good for him. But then we have other clear chances that I think we need to do better. But again, I go back. Without the ball now, the chances don't fall in. Our ability not to give up 3 goals again makes it really difficult.
Again,
so
come on, Frank,
the
wrap it up.
season is young, Alex. The season is young.
Okay, the season's not young. You're over a third of the way through the season. It is not young. You're at the bottom of the Eastern Conference. The only team worse than you in the East is New England, who took 4 points from you. So the season is not young, Frank. And again, he's giving himself away because he's like, we have the talent to win games. The players are good players. They just need to play better. All right, so either you're wrong, you don't have the talent, or then it's your own fault that they're not playing better. Frank, you keep giving yourself away, man. Trying to build the players up, it just points more fingers at you. Maybe you should say, like, some of these guys just don't fit in. Maybe you should say, there's going to be some benchings. We need to call up some CF2 players. Like people have been saying, like I've been saying on the show. Bring up some competition, right? They're getting complacent, man. Like, Shaqiri just trots around. Bench his butt, call up some other CF2 player. jab his ego, and if he can't handle it, then send him back to Switzerland.
Friend. So that's the only thing I can tell you. I can only regroup and get ready. I'm glad that we have a midweek game on Wednesday, and we just have to regroup and find a way to get out of this.
That might be
You know,
good.
we're
He's
trying to
right.
Find solutions. That's the only thing I can tell you.
Maybe a midweek game is good. Quick turnaround. Can't think about it. All right, let's see what the next question is.
We'll go back to the Zoom and we'll go to Jim Alexander from Real Talker.
Oh, I don't know, Jim.
Hey, Coach. Tough one. Tough watching it, too, at home. The Apple broadcast team was very critical tonight, and you kind of mentioned things like things are unraveling and the wheels are falling off for the Fire, and Frankie Klopas is what they kind of said. How do you keep this together when the outside noise is going to start getting louder?
Good
and,
question.
like I said, the national broadcasts are going to be critical. How do you kind of keep this in home and try to, not get that to the guy?
Yeah, go ahead. Sorry.
No, just wanted to know, how do you kind of keep this together, when the outside noise is kind of saying things are unraveling and wheels are falling off? How do you keep everyone still focused and not kind of tuned out and not listening to that sort of noise?
Good question.
Listen, that's broadcasters. They come and they do a game, and then they can say they're not there every day in training to see what takes place, where the group is and stuff like that. So I don't see anything unraveling. Yes, the results haven't been there. That's for sure. For me, it's early in the season. The only thing I can tell you, there's no unraveling here. We have to go back tomorrow and regroup and get ready for Wednesday. They do the game. It's easy to, I think, to evaluate. I mean, if you're honest, I said, you watched the game today?
Yeah, I watched the game
today. So, did we create chances today?
Yes.
Okay.
I didn't agree personally with a lot that was said. I kind of wanted to throw that in also.
No, but I can't. I mean, I don't listen to the broadcast. If I listen to what people say of this or that, it's a little bit of a shame. I mean, we start the game and
Another good coach answer. Typical coach speak.
Okay, you give them that, and then I talked about clear where I see the game. I mean, I have to see it again, but I just felt like, as far as just winning duels and I think that I think they came ahead of that. But I think even in the first half, we had two crystal clear chances to score. We put one of those in. Maybe that changes the game and the momentum and right before the half, where we take
Let me interject on that one here, guys. That's. What if we score that first goal? What if we score that second goal? What if we convert one of our chances? Frank, what if you were the president of the United States? Like, what if? You can say what if all you want to. The fact is you're not. And week in and week out, you're not. So you can't say, and I think this is the problem, right? Frank's looking at things one game at a time, which is why he's not rotating his roster, which is why you're getting the same attempts with the same terrible results, right? What's the definition of insanity? He cannot look more than the game that's in front of him. And for some people, that might be what they want out of their coach. But at some point, this coach has to realize what you're doing is not wrong. Like, again, you can't say it's early on in the season when you've played 11 games. So I think Frank's a little bit out of touch with reality here. I really like the question. I'm really glad it's pointed. I really wish the asker of the question wouldn't backpedal and be like, well, personally, I disagree. We had 2.5 expected goals. Yeah, so what? Like, you scored 1. You gave up 3. Like, well, we're creating chances. Not good ones then. Like, there's a lot. There's always, whatever answer Frank gives always opens up another question. Let's continue on with his presser.
Before the half, 1-1. We came out, we scored the goal. Unfortunately, we had some injuries. We had to make changes again.
The injury excuse.
With Callan and Allen. And, and then we're trying to find ways to
Tisk,
push the
Frank.
game like we did.
The injury excuse.
For the most part, I felt the guys, pushed the game and worked hard. We got in some good spots. We didn't have quality. So the only thing I can tell you is that, I don't see the group unraveling. I see the team is focused. We need to find a way to get a result. So, look, when you lose games, of course, people are going to be talking and saying all different things. We've got to shut the noise off and focus on what we need to do.
Let me pause again. I'll give him that. Like, you got to, as a coach and the players, you got to shut up the noise off. But for him to discredit the broadcast team, to just say, like, well, they just came in and they call a game and that's it. Like, that's really kind of kind of ignorant, like, of these professional broadcasters who actually have been around the game for most of their lives, covering this league for a few years, and, by the way, who are paid to analyze and understand everything. And it's not just the broadcast team, it's the people in the MLS studio, like your Bradley Wright Phillips, like your Sasha Kleshtin, Matt Doyle, Andrew Wiebe, these guys who have played in and been covering the league for decades, and for Frank to be like, what do they know? They just come in and look at a game, or they look at some results. That's pretty ignorant of a response, I would say.
Certainly.
All right, what else we got here, Frank? What are you going to do
To
next?
button this up, I think the big point here was the criticism of Shaq. They did mention to the point that Chicago Fire and Shaq cannot go on, and that Shaq is giving no effort on defense. And Coach, I know you're with Shaq all the time, and you see him at practice and in games, and it doesn't look to me
Pointed
at least
question.
that he's
Yes.
not giving effort. It seems like he is being vocal, and for what I've noticed personally. But how do you kind of defend your player by when things are these kind of harsh accusations saying that the guy's not even trying out there defensively, which is, I think, kind of harsh.
I think the guy's trying, but obviously
It's not harsh, it's the
with-
truth. He doesn't play
everybody
defense.
talks about this price tag, and you expect more, with production from that. He gave the first half a really good pass that we should have converted. In the end of the day, over 90 minutes, do you expect more? Of course, of course.
Yeah, hold him
But,
accountable then.
I don't feel that the guy is not trying. So I think that's going to be the case for any DP that comes in, and the team is losing games, and obviously the numbers are not what they are. So I'm going to work with my players, try to prepare them, try to make the best decisions that I feel.
You had a
the
year and a
players are
half,
available
Frank.
to put the best squad that can give us an opportunity to win.
And that's the end of the clip. That's what the Chicago Fire released on their website as far as Frank Klopas' post-game comments. Again, to wrap up those last thoughts about Shaqiri, good question. I wish the reporter wouldn't have tried to hedge a little and be like, well, I don't agree, but people are saying Shaqiri's terrible. I mean, I don't agree. Don't hedge. Ask the question, man. Like, have some gumption. God, I sound old. I just said gumption. But still, the fact is, Shaqiri has not performed. And forget the paycheck, forget the $8 million DP salary. The dude doesn't play defense. Any other team would have benched him by now, regardless of the DP tag, except for Frank Klopas and the Chicago Fire. So with that was Frank Klopas' post-game press conference. That is my reaction to it, hearing it for the first time. Let me know what you think. I mean, love him or hate him, Klopas is not doing very well as a coach for the Chicago Fire. And I was chiming in there like, you had a year and a half to work with these guys, Frank, when he said, I'm going to continue to work with my players. I'm like, you had a year and a half. No, you've had like a decade, dude. You've been on the bench on the sideline in some capacity or other for almost a decade. Like, do something, man. What are you working on in training? That's really what I want to know. I want to know who is at these training sessions and watching and reporting and commenting what actually is going on. So anyway, yeah, DP or not, Shaq's a bust. And yeah, expectation does come with a high price tag. And most other DPs have lived up to it, or at least have put the effort in and tried to endear themselves to fans. Not Shaqiri. He has not endeared himself to fans. He has not played well. He's gotten into arguments way too much. He's just not it. And I think all the criticism at this point in his third season with the Fire is 100% deserved. All right, we're enough. We don't need to pile on Shaqiri. His play can do that for him. We're going to take a quick break here. We are going to recognize our sponsor, Skira Icelandic Spring Water, who has been with the Feed the Fire podcast since day one. And if you or your brand are looking to partner up with the Feed the Fire podcast and sponsor some new content, things we can put out on our social media, or create new ads, new videos, things for you specifically, please reach out to me, glasshousesoccer@gmail.com. But again, right now. Skira Icelandic Spring Water has been our faithful supporter, loyal supporter from day one of this show. And Skira Icelandic Spring Water is available at your local 7-Eleven. Skira Icelandic for clear. Clearly one of the best waters out there. Pun absolutely intended. Skira Icelandic Spring Water at your local 7-Eleven. And as always at this time, we welcome in our featured guest each and every week. With all of his takes on the Chicago Fire and MLS, I'm going to turn it over to John Donovan. Take it away.
Nick, John Donovan here talking about the MLS and the Chicago Fire. What a game, Nick. I don't really know how to start. I wrote at the end of my notes, St. Louis has been in the league a short time, and they're way better than the Fire. The Fire have been in since, 1998? And these teams, these Austins, these Atlantas, these St. Louises, these teams get invented. Even Columbus got invented after it moved down to Austin. And they're way better than the Fire. Something is in the air with this team. I know Joe Mansueto has spent a lot of money, but he's gone with the same management team. And in fact, Nick, it almost made me sick to hear that he had signed Heinz and the other guy, the head scout, to a 3-year contract. So Mansueto has no changes in the future. He, I guess, just thinks that Chicago soccer fans are going to come out to his games because he owns the team. It's in a very bad state right now. You could see that the locker room has been lost. There's no discussions between coaches. There's no discussions on the field. Shaqiri was yelling at everybody from the referee to his teammates. It was an extremely bad performance by the Fire. It started out at 127 of the first half, where the defense kept backing up into the goal, and a gentleman by the name of Alm just put it right over the top of Brady's hands. In speaking about a loss that the Fire pulled off, a 3-1 loss in St. Louis, you got to hand it to Brady. I know it's a lot of goals against a one goalie, but it would have been a 7-0 game if it wasn't for Brady. The guy just shines. He's rough, he's big, he's tall, he's very quick. I don't expect to see him long in this league. Unfortunately, we seem to develop goaltenders and they go, but he's a pleasure to watch, this Brady guy. Doesn't get upset. He plays his game. I can't get over Klopas using Shaq again for center mid. It just does not work. It's obvious it's not working with Cuypers. It's not even close to working. If you remember back when Heinz took over the team, he had a Dutch guy or something up front, and he had Mihalovic as the center mid for a period of time. I mean, he had to earn that spot. But the center scored quite a few goals. In fact, he almost won the Golden Boot that year because they had a proper center that was feeding that forward line. Shaqiri is not that guy. And I guess Klopas will go down in his career as the guy that just could not handle DPs. I mean, you think of the DPs that we've recently had with Heinz, and it's been close to a disaster. Having Cuypers right now, I somewhat feel sorry for him. He did a beautiful score this time. The guy's obviously very ambidextrous with his legs. He put in a beautiful left footer. It was bouncing high. Had to get his body even with the level of the ball and drilled it in. But that was one of the few. We have not supplied anything into this scoring machine in the middle. He's even coming back to get the ball himself, which kind of defeats the purpose of the $12 million center forward scorer. But, this game, even good players, Acosta had a miserable game. I thought Arangoni looked like he belonged in the Fire second team. He was eaten up by the center, by the wingers on St. Louis. He just couldn't do anything right, to the point where they had to pull him out and put Dean in, which did slow the process a little bit. Arangoni, you just have to hang this one up as a bad game. He's had good games. Pineda did not have a good game, but he was playing next to Terran, who had a terrible game. you think back, and it looked like he might have even injured his knee again there. But Terran, for almost now a full year, when he went down with that knee injury last year, early in the season, he just has not played well since. It just has been a one-way ship for Terran. If he thinks he's going to Europe playing the way he is, he's badly mistaken. It really, he got, at the end of the game, he got a stupid card, I believe, but at the end of the game, he launched a ball right into the feet of St. Louis. And I just thought, this guy doesn't know where he's at in the game. There's 30 seconds to go, and he wasn't even making an attempt to score. So there is so much wrong with the Fire right now, Nick. I don't know where to start. They went out and they got Gutman. He played all right. Herbers did not play well. He came out with an attitude, and you just can't do that in soccer. You've got to play tough. You got to be strong, but you don't play with emotions. It does not work. Acosta and Herbers had 2 bad games. Shaqiri had a normally bad game. I felt bad for Cuypers. Mueller looked all right, but not great. Gutman was all right. Pineda did not have a good game. Terran had a bad game, and Arangoni had a really bad game, Nick. So I don't know where they're going with this. If Mansueto hangs on to Klopas, as a fan, I'm really feeling very suspicious of Joe Mansueto. Is he just owning this team to own a team, or does he plan on getting Chicago? He's spending money, which he has an awful lot of. You could spend millions a day and never reach the bottom of his load. But is he playing smart? And I just don't think so. If I had invested in season tickets right now, I'd be furious about this season. It just, you have to provide good talent, which he did, and provide good management, which, we don't have, Nick. It's a crying shame the way the team is going with the talent they have. So, this is a downer. I'm hoping that somehow or another for the big cup coming up with the Mexican teams that the Fire start to play better. It's an awful exciting tournament. I really look forward to it. That's about it, Nick. I wish I had something brighter to say. Charlotte comes in this week, and they're well coached. They're a well-coached team. And then they get Columbus in, which everybody knows that's the team that probably one of the best teams in this continent, North and South America. They are sharp. So the Fire don't have any easy games coming up, but unless they can solve this attitude that's coming out on the field from the locker room, this is going to be a season to forget, Nick. Take care. Hi, Mike. Take care, guys. Thanks for this opportunity.
Thank you, John, once again for your contributions to the show. We appreciate it, and I know we've got fans out there that are looking forward to your commentary each and every week. So, again, thank you for being a part of the Feed the Fire podcast. Now, looking ahead for the Chicago Fire, they've got a quick turnaround, as we heard Frank Klopas mention. Midweek game against Charlotte, coming to Chicago, Wednesday night matchup, and then the following Saturday against the Columbus Crew, also here at Soldier Field in Chicago. Now let's just take a couple of quick looks at their upcoming opponents. Charlotte, the one notable thing about Charlotte, they don't have any designated players on their roster, and yet they currently sit 6th in the Eastern Conference. They have 17 points, level with New York City and DC United, so those are your 5, 6, and 7 place teams in the Eastern Conference right now. After 12 games, I said it was 11 games before, 12 games. So when Klopas is like, the season is young, no, the season is more than a third of the way over. Let's see, Charlotte, after 12 games, 5 wins, 5 losses, and 2 draws. However, their away record, 0 wins, 4 losses, and a draw. So not a good away team. Maybe that bodes well for the Fire. At home, they're 5-1-1, so great home field advantage. And yeah, if you've been to a game or seen pictures of their home stadium, they pack them in, and it's a great atmosphere for them. But not so much on the road. Now, will that be as much of a disadvantage playing in what I expect to be a pretty light crowd on a Wednesday night in Soldier Field? You've got a bad Chicago Fire team. You've got a Charlotte team with really no big names coming in on a Wednesday night. And I called someone up to say, hey, I got a couple of tickets that the club gave me to hand out this week. And they're like, no thanks. I don't want to be in Chicago on a weeknight that late. Sorry. Like, all right, fair enough. And that really just summed it all up as to why the crowds aren't coming in. But Charlotte is playing well, and they're on kind of a bit of a mini streak. Their last 2 games have been wins, 1-0 against Nashville, then 2-0 against Portland. Prior to that, they lost 2-1 at New York City. Then they lost at home, their one home loss, 3-0 to Minnesota, and then a 3-2 victory versus Toronto. So over the last 5 games, 4 wins and a loss. 3 wins and 2 losses. I can't count. Sorry, it's late. It's been a long weekend. 3 wins, 2 losses over their last 5 games, but their most recent 2 results were victories. Speaking of Minnesota, though, pardon me if you're watching on YouTube. I got to open my phone up here real quick because my MLS group chat with a bunch of independent content creators from all over the league was just going off. I'm like, what's going on? Speaking of Minnesota, sidebar, Emmanuel Reynoso is back in Minnesota, but we don't know when he will play for the Loons again. This is just wild after he has like just gone back and disappeared in Argentina for a while. But apparently he's back now. They have him. Oh no, the pop-up came. I have to log in and subscribe. But apparently they have some plan to reintegrate him into the squad now. Like, it's absolutely odd that this is going on, that Reynoso is back in the mix in Minnesota. But anyway, good for the Loons. Some fun stuff to write and talk about. But yeah, Charlotte's coming in on, like I said, a little bit of a mini streak. 2 wins in their last 2 games. As far as their lineup, how they like to play, in that win against Nashville, they played in a 4-3-3. They've got Kalina goalkeeping, a back line of Aronin, Privet, Malanda, and Byrne. Again, guys that I'm not familiar with, who probably either have been kind of journeymen in MLS or kind of some young players here. Their midfielders are, let's see, Diani Westwood, Ashley Westwood. That's a name you would recognize if you've been following MLS. As well as a name you would recognize if you have any history with the Chicago Fire. Brant Bronico started their last match at right outside midfielder there. Brant Bronico, let me just read you some of his stats. He's only 28. Seems like he's a lot older than that. Only 28 years old. Let's go check in on his career stats here. So he has been with the MLS since 2017. Played with the Fire from 2017 through 2020, and then has been with Charlotte FC. He took off 2021, and then has been with Charlotte FC from 2022, 3, and 4. So his best season with the Fire was that 2019 season. 20 starts, a goal and 2 assists. You know, not bad for him there. Though he did have a goal and 5 assists the prior year, but he had a few more appearances in 2019. Thus far this year, no goals, no assists, 1 shot. So he's definitely more of a defensive type of midfielder. And yeah, in his career in 3 seasons at Charlotte, 2 goals and 8 assists. So more of a playmaker than the star striker there. But yeah, Brant Bronico, hopefully he gets a nice little bit of a reception in Chicago when he's announced. Meanwhile, Charlotte's attacking line is Vargas and Agyemang and, pardon me, sir, Dejageri. That's what I'm going to go with. Deja vu. It's deja vu all over again. He'll probably score against the Fire. Dejageri. So they're your guys who started that match against Nashville. They saw Junior Urso, formerly of Orlando City. There's a name. He came in as a sub. Arfield comes in as a sub. Yuri Tavares, Petkovic. That's some of their availability off the bench. They've also got Jalen Lindsay coming off the bench. And who is this? Hamade Diop. So there's guys who've been around MLS, quality guys, but really it's been the story of new head coach Dean Smith, who has come in and just put it all together, created just an excellent atmosphere for his team, cohesive, positive. They got rid of Enzo Capetti. Despite the talent, he was kind of a bit of a just not a good presence in the locker room, and you saw how he could easily get under the skin of other players. Miguel Navarro, but I imagine he was doing similar things with his own teammates, so that's why he's no longer here, and they're doing it without DPs. So kudos to Charlotte. I really don't see Charlotte as, some team that's going to come in and steamroll the Chicago Fire, but the way the Chicago Fire have been playing, it wouldn't surprise me at all if Charlotte has another 2-3 game performance in them against the Chicago Fire, as bad as they've been playing. Some of the players to watch. The highest goal scorer on the team is, let me pull up the stats here, Agumeng. He's got 3 goals. Vargas with 2, and then you've got a number of players who have 1 goal. Now, if you want to talk about their assist leader, no one is an assist leader. There are 7 guys who all have an assist on the season. So they're really kind of spreading it around. But if you want to look at attacking, it's Agumeng and Vargas who lead the team with 23 and 22 shots each. And then the next, it's Yuri Tavares and Deja Vu with 10 goals. Deja Gere with 10 shots each, excuse me. So those are the guys to really look for when they come to town here. All right, now we're also going to look ahead at Saturday's game against Columbus. I'm not going to spend too much time on this because we've seen Columbus play quite a bit already this season, both within MLS and within CONCACAF Champions Cup, and I think that may be the only thing that gives the Chicago Fire a little bit of glimmer of hope against the Columbus Crew, is that they might be tired, they might be rotating, though I think they rotated last week. They don't have to play Pachuca until June 2nd, according to their schedule. So they probably rotated last week in that loss against Cincinnati, coming off a few days break after defeating Monterrey in Monterrey. They're going to have a Wednesday night game at Montreal, so a bit of an Eastern Conference rivalry there. We'll see how they play that game out, but depending on what they do this Wednesday against Montreal, we could see a fully rested Columbus Crew team come into Chicago and take another 3 points. I will be at this game. I really do want to see that well-rested, full-starting Columbus team. I'd love to see some of their starters have a good show and put on a show. I mean, I'd love to see the Chicago Fires put on a good show. Chicago Fire starters put on a good show, but it just hasn't happened after 12 games. So anyway, I'll take what I can get at this point. Yeah, it would be a lot of fun going with my son, another friend of ours and his son as well. So if you're going to be at the Crew game, we're up in section 205. Just yell out, Nick, Feed the Fire, Glass House Soccer, something, I'll hear you. But yeah, if you're out there, it'll be great to see you. Otherwise, enjoy the game from wherever you do decide to watch it. But yeah, Columbus, they're coming off that loss to Cincinnati. I wonder if they'll rotate against Montreal or try to put the full team in against Montreal, take those 3 points on the road, go to a much inferior opponent on the road in Chicago, take 3 points. Then they're at Orlando. Again, kind of a lesser opponent based on play this season, so maybe this is a really good stretch for Columbus to kind of get their guys fit, looking at the first leg in the CONCACAF Champions Cup final against Pachuca in Columbus on June 2nd. So if they rotate, the Chicago Fire have a chance to try to catch them by surprise. But even then, even with all this extra continental play, Columbus is still 8th place in the Eastern Conference. 3 wins, 2 losses, 6 draws. So they know how to grind out points if they need to. They haven't won a game away from home, but they have been picking up points. 1 loss, 3 draws away from home. So going to be a tough match for the Fire. Will the Fire have the legs to stay in the match? Will they have the depth? Will they have just the desire, as Frank Klopas put it, if I may paraphrase? Will they have the desire or the fight in them to come out and defeat the Columbus Crew at home? Guys, I don't see anything that the Fire have done throughout the last 12 games or even just the last week to make me think that they have what it takes to beat Charlotte or to beat Columbus or to even draw both of these teams in a short week. So I am not optimistic by this. honestly, if they take a point against Charlotte and keep it close against Columbus, I think that's the best they can hope for. I think if you're looking really on the bright side, it's a win against Charlotte and a draw against Columbus. And I think that's the best case scenario for the Chicago Fire. 4 points in the next 2 games. Worst case scenario, obviously 0 points, which is a very real possibility. Obviously you can say, oh, best case, they win everything. Worst case, they lose everything. But it's an actual real scenario that they lose these next 2 games. And then it's a very, very real scenario that they draw one or maybe beat Charlotte. I don't know. So that's what I'm looking at. I'm not excited. I am not looking forward to what is in the short-term future for the Chicago Fire. What I have been excited about, and let's transition into some league-wide news here. What I have been excited about, at least with the Chicago Fire, is Omari Glasgow getting the call. We talked about him on the last episode about how he didn't look like he was intimidated by the moment, but he did look a little nervous, taking a few extra touches in his first time on the ball and dribbling it over the end line. But he did provide an attacking spark. He did provide the hustle. A lot of people were wondering why they didn't see him in the last matchup. And I think you have to manage these players who are on short-term contracts a lot more, period. The reason being, he's got a contract with CF2. If they were going to sign him to a first-team deal, then they would have to pay him a lot more, and he would have a lot more rights and all that sort of thing, and then they could use him. But rather than do that, they sign him to a short-term loan. And you can sign a player for 4 short-term loans, no more than 4 days per loan, and no more than a total of 16 total short-term loan days. So essentially, you get 4 4-day loans on a player. Then, those short-term loan players can only appear in 2 MLS League games. So Glasgow already appeared in one, in that Atlanta game, if I recall. And if he plays in another, that's it. That's as many MLS games as he can play in for the rest of the season. He could, I guess, play in the Leagues Cup game, because that's not an MLS game. Could play in the U.S. Open Cup had the Chicago Fire senior team been a part of that. That's another competition. He probably could come up and play with some friendlies, maybe some exhibition things. I don't know if they have different roster rules for those, but it at least gives him the opportunity now to be training with the first team and maybe get used when it's a situation of we really need to generate some offense. We're down a goal or we're level and we're pushing for the goal at home. We've got the momentum. Let's get Glasgow in there. Definitely was not the right time to use him in that game against St. Louis when you're down 2 goals. Maybe if you were down 1 instead of subbing in Barlow, subbing Glasgow. But again, Klopas wants Barlow to be the striker that he feeds the ball to, and of course, why would he think outside the box? As we heard him say, and as I interpreted it, he's kind of just thinking game to game to game. He's not thinking big picture. Also, some big league news here. Cavan Sullivan, the Philadelphia Union homegrown, just signed he's 14 years old, signed a contract with the Union, and then the idea is once he turns 18, they'll transfer him to Manchester City. They've already got that all set in place. But according to the MLSsoccer.com release here, the Union have signed midfielder Cavan Sullivan through 2028 to the largest homegrown player deal in MLS history. He is the 5th youngest signing in MLS history, 14 years, 224 days. He's the younger brother of Quinn Sullivan, who is another Union homegrown player, and I think he's a regular starter for the Union at this point. And let's see, what else can we learn about this signing? Really doesn't say much, not a lot about dollars, obviously, and we'll probably see that when the next MLS Players Association numbers come out, either at the end of the season or the beginning of next year. And here's kind of the big here's your bar trivia about Cavan Sullivan. Should he debut for the Union on or before July 29th, he'd be the youngest debutant, as the article puts it, the youngest rookie starter, whatever, among top North American professional sports leagues: MLB, MLS, NBA, NFL, NHL, and WSL. That would also make him the youngest debutant as compared to teams in the 5 European top soccer leagues. So he is, if he gets a start before July 29th, youngest pro starter in the top North American professional sports. So big signing. Keep an eye on him. He'll be playing with Manchester City, hopefully, probably. in about 6 years with their first team or so, maybe 8 years if they kind of loan him out for a few years. We'll see. But yep, that's the idea, is that he's signed his deal with the Union till he's 18, and then they will work something out with Manchester City. The other big news that I teased before we started the show was Jesse Marsch has been hired by the Canadian Soccer Federation. He is Canada's new men's national team coach. Here's the article from MLSsoccer.com. And yes, I do realize I have to say that a lot. It just kind of keeps rolling. MLSsoccer.com, MLSsoccer.com. Jesse Marsch has been named head coach of the Canadian men's national team, the Federation announced Monday. Marsch, who's previously led MLS sides CF Montreal and New York Red Bulls, has taken over with immediate effect. The appointment comes at a pivotal time, with Canada set to open the 2024 Copa America on June 20th against Inter Miami superstar Leo Messi in Argentina. Gotta slip that in there. They'll also co-host the expanded World Cup. Yep, we all know all of that. Let's see. Here's what Marsch said about being hired. It is an absolute honor to represent and lead the Canadian men's national team in our preparation for a home World Cup. The combination of the new leadership inside of Canada Soccer, coupled with the potential of this dynamic player pool, has inspired me, and I am ready and eager to take on this massive responsibility. My excitement and anticipation to get started are immense. One of my main goals will be to help unite the soccer community in Canada to support our efforts to be successful on and off the pitch, all in for 2026. Oh my gosh, just replace Canada with Chicago and imagine how that would have sounded. It's an honor to represent and lead the Chicago soccer team, the Chicago Fire. The combination of new leadership, well, that would have to change, inside of the Chicago Fire organization. I would love to help unite the soccer community in Chicago. Oh, can you imagine? Can you imagine, Fire supporters and friends and listeners, how that would have been if he was talking about Chicago instead of Canada. Anyway, I'm not going to get into the whole Jesse Marsch should or should not be the coach, but it's just something funny to think about, right? Let's see. Any other big things that came out of this article? Just a lot of praise for him. Kevin Blue, CEO and General Secretary of Canada Soccer, said, extensive consultation with expert stakeholders and rigorous search process. All that good stuff. And then they go on to talk about all of his MLS roots. As a player, coach, all that, his USMNT stuff. Also, Jeff Carlisle, well-known soccer writer, has a big article on ESPN about it and kind of gets into some of those details as well. So that is all the big news. I want to remind everyone that Glasshouse Soccer and I were over on goals.tv doing a scoreboard recap, giving you all the scores and headlines from around the league over the weekend. It's like I try to cram it all in 10 to 12 minutes. So find us on goals.tv. Reach out to me, glasshousesoccer@gmail.com. Ryan, I owe you a response to your email, so I'll try to get that to you within a day or two. But I appreciate everyone tuning in, listening, viewing. Please like, subscribe, rate, review, share the show. We've seen steady growth from day one. Let's continue it, and I can only do that if you guys continue to engage with the show online through social media, as well as sharing it by word of mouth. And as always, let's go Fire.